Good morning, everyone. If you've not already, would you please take your seat? Welcome. It's now 9 a.m. and the February 26th Big C meeting will come to order. This morning's host municipality is North Reddington Beach. Thank you for the wonderful breakfast. Everyone, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our form of roll call is self-introductions. I'm going to do a little bit different this morning. We're going to start right over here, and everyone please go around the room and introduce yourselves, and then we'll introduce the Big C.
Good morning, Joan Goodrich with the City of Treasure Island.
Good morning, Barry Rubin with the Pinellas Beaches Chamber.
Renee Rose with the City of Bel Air Beach.
I'm Gary Curtis, Commissioner, North Reddington Beach.
Jenna Abbey with Horn, supporting Pinellas County.
Ryan Flannery, also with Horn, supporting Pinellas County.
Tyler Bridges, Horn, supporting Pinellas County.
Matthew Spohr, Assistant County Administrator, Pinellas County.
Adriana Neves, Town Clerk, Town of Reddington Beach.
Mary Campbell, Town Clerk, North Reddington Beach.
Nikki Rusnak, Madeira Beach resident.
CJ Hoyt, Commissioner, Town of Reddington Shores.
Janet Wilson, Vice Mayor, City of Indian Rocks Beach.
Brian Scott, Chairman, Pinellas County Commission.
Mike Twitty, Pinellas County Property Appraiser.
Charlie Justice, Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber of Commerce.
Christopher Hollins, citizen, St. Pete Beach.
Michael Ballard, Student Fellow, Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions.
Sam Jenkins, SPC's Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions.
Rodney Chapman, Division Manager for Pinellas.
Francis Robustelli, City Manager, St. Pete Beach.
Keith Bodeker, Public Works Supervisor, North Reddington Beach.
John Mordelite, Madeira Beach Fire Department.
Clint Belk, Fire Chief, Madeira Beach Fire Department.
Mike McLaughlin, Town Administrator, Reddington Shores.
Tina Porter, Town Administrator, Indian Shores.
Rick Swan, Chief of Police for Indian Shores and Reddington Shores.
Bill Queen, Seminole.
Dan Caldwell, resident. We need a bigger microphone.
Peg Shannon, resident, Pinellas County.
Tim Johnson, Waterfront Realty.
I love this thing. Gina Johnson, Waterfront Realty.
Helen Roldan, Ballyhoo Media.
Megan Powers, Assistant to the City Manager, Madeira Beach.
Jay Super, incoming Mayor, North Reddington Beach.
Barry Burton, Pinellas County.
Dave Connor, Director of Communications for Pinellas County.
Anybody else need the box?
Megan Wetford, City of Madeira Beach.
Good morning, Robin Gomez, City of Madeira Beach.
Anyone else? All right, let's start on this end.
Diantha Shear, Mayor of Indian Shores.
Denise Hausberg, Mayor of Indian Rocks Beach.
Bruce Rector, Mayor of the City of Clearwater.
Evan Kennedy, Vice Mayor, North Reddington Beach.
Dave Gaddis, Mayor of Bel Air Beach and Vice President of Big C.
Lisa Hendrickson, Mayor of Reddington Shores and Treasurer for the Big C.
Anne Marie Brooks, Mayor, Madeira Beach.
John Doctor, Mayor of Treasure Island.
All right, thank you, everyone. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Any changes? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the agenda passes. I think I'm supposed to actually say who did the first and the second. So the first was Shear, and the second was Doctor.
Yes.
All right. Next up is approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Oh, man, that's a tie. I'm going to give that one, let's see here. Give that one to Brooks and to Hendrickson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. The minutes are approved. Now we are on to the treasurer's report. Mayor Hendrickson?
Thank you, Mayor Gaddis. For January 2025, our beginning balance was $1,144.44. We had no deposits, no disbursements, so our ending balance as of January 31st, 2025, $1,144. Thank you.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept this report?
So moved.
Motion is made by Mayor Rector. Do I have a second? Second. Hausberg. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. The report is accepted. All right. Now we are on to new business. We have a presentation from Commissioner Brian Scott.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good morning.
So what I'm going to do is basically just kind of introduce the topic of the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Relief Program, and then turn it over to our consultants who are going to help us develop the plan for that. But as you know or have probably heard, Pinellas County has received a block grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for $813 million. Okay, that is to provide disaster recovery, relief, for resilience efforts and rebuilding. That is for unincorporated Pinellas County and all of the municipalities with the exception of St. Petersburg, which got their own separate award. So we have about 90 days to figure out, develop a plan of how we're going to basically spend that money. And this is the first of several community meetings that we're going to have to determine what those unmet needs are. And then we will take that plan, we will submit it to HUD. They will hopefully approve it, and then we will be able to stand up grant programs to get money directly into people's hands to help them rebuild and recover. So kind of the timeline on that, and our consultants are going to go over that. It's probably, we're looking at late summer realistically before all of that is going to be processed. I mean, obviously we'd like to get that done as quickly as we can. So this is the first of several meetings that we're going to have, and the county hired consultants, Horn, because they are experts in HUD community development block grant programs, and we are not. So we've hired them to help us through this process, and we're very excited to have them on board. And with that, I'm going to introduce Jenna and Ryan from Horn to take it from here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Ryan Flannery. I'm a director with Horn. Been with Horn for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I was the assistant director of the Disaster Recovery Division there. Spent about 10 years with HUD, working with grantees all across the country, primarily in the southern part of the United States where most disasters hit. Managed about $40 billion of disaster recovery funding. And since I've come to Horn, I have been supporting grantees all across the country as they recover. So, Jenna?
And my name's Jenna Abbey. I'm also a director with Horn. Been supporting CDBG-DR grantees all around the country for about 15 years now. My background is in project management, and I've been blessed to put those skills to work supporting disaster recovery efforts around the country. Really thankful to be here supporting Pinellas County.
Thanks. And one thing I forgot to mention, I'm also a Pinellas County resident. I live in St. Pete. So went through the storms, understand where a lot of people, what they've dealt with, what they're going through, and very excited and honestly honored to be here to help support the county and you all with the recovery. So to start, we're going to start very basic. What is CDBG-DR? CDBG-DR is the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program. This is a program that sits on the chassis of the annual CDBG program that goes to states and cities all across the country. It's appropriated annually. It's an authorized program by Congress, whereas the CDBG-DR program is not. It's a supplemental appropriation that comes from Congress when events occur that really sort of outpace and outweigh the ability of the local or state government's ability to recover. They're very flexible. You can do many different things, which we'll get into that. And one thing that I want to kind of highlight is the history of these grants really dates back to 1993 with Hurricane Andrew. So HUD used CDBG, Congress used CDBG as a conduit to get the funds out to the states and local governments at the time. And Florida was a big recipient of those funds. Over time, it's developed, and so it's grown. It's turned into its own sort of quasi-program in that regulations have been developed, but not formal regulations. They come in the form of what's called a Federal Register Notice. That lays out the rules, lays out the allocations for the programs and for the grants. And then ultimately, it's kind of grown to a point where back in 1993, we had very little rules. Now, fast forward to where we are today, about 124 pages of rules. So I highlight that because it is a very flexible program, but compliance is a challenge. There's a lot that goes into maintaining compliance and into delivering these programs. Just a quick overview of the funding process. So it starts with Congress. Obviously, Congress passes a bill. It's signed by the president. It goes to HUD, and HUD uses a formula allocation to make allocations to grantees. It's a formula that takes into account things like FEMA data, SBA data, census data, and so on. And they determine where the funding should go based on the amount of damage and the need that they calculate within each jurisdiction. They then publish a Federal Register Notice, as I'd mentioned, that lays out the rules, lays out the allocations, and then ultimately it goes to the state or the local government through a grant agreement. When it goes to the grantee has to prepare an action plan. That's where we are today. So we're developing an action plan, which really has to take into a large account of, data, of information that we collect from folks like you all, from the public. We'll be doing surveys. We'll be doing a lot of outreach events and efforts. And then ultimately, once that action plan is approved, the grantee then takes the action plan and turns it into programs. Administers programs, gets the grant agreement from HUD, and then runs programs to implement the recovery.
So this slide outlines the steps to how do we get to program launch. As Ryan mentioned, we are currently in the development of the action plan phase, which is the first step. To develop the action plan, Pinellas County must collect data from sources like FEMA, NFIP, and the SBA on the impacts of the disasters. The covered disasters in this case are Hurricane Idalia, Helene, and Milton. We will also collect input from residents, municipal leaders, and other stakeholders, and publish the plan for comment. The plan must be published for comment for no fewer than 30 days. And during the period of action plan development, the county must host 3 public meetings to solicit input from the public on the plan. After the plan is complete, the plan will be submitted to HUD for review and acceptance by HUD. Per the regulation, HUD has 45 days to review and accept the plan. Upon HUD acceptance, HUD will issue the county a grant agreement, which essentially opens the line of credit and allows Pinellas County to access that $813 million in grant funding, which in turn allows the county the funding source to be able to open those grant programs. The action plan does have some requirements the county must meet. First of all, the county must conduct an unmet needs assessment. That needs assessment is informed by the data I mentioned on the previous slide. The data is supplemented by input from the public. That data and public input will formulate what's called the unmet needs analysis. The unmet needs analysis looks at recovery impacts in 3 primary categories: infrastructure, economic revitalization, and housing. The action plan must program the funding into programs or projects that proportionately address unmet needs. So currently, the county's initial unmet needs analysis, for example, shows large unmet needs in the housing sector. Because we're seeing large unmet needs in the housing sector, HUD will expect to see programs to address housing unmet needs. We must consult stakeholders, must have at least 3 public meetings, and 70% of program dollars at minimum must be programmed to benefit low and moderate income households which for Pinellas County is about $76,000 for a family of 4. HUD also sets some budget thresholds for how these $813 million must be programmed. In this allocation, we have $707 million for unmet needs. This $707 million is for unmet disaster recovery needs. So these dollars are intended for needs that are directly related to impacts caused by those hurricanes. There's also a 15% set aside, or about $106 million for mitigation activities. Mitigation activities can be projects or programs to fund activities that are not necessarily related to direct impacts from the previous storms, but projects and activities that make the county more resilient in the face of future disasters. The county is subject to a 5% administration cap, so the county has around $40 million to administer the programs over the 6-year lifespan of this grant. And again, 70% of the program funds must be spent to benefit LMI populations.
All right, so what can you do with these funds? To start, there are 3 sort of main components to each project. Each project has to meet these 3 requirements. It has to be an eligible activity, and we're going to talk through what the eligible activities are. They range from housing to infrastructure, economic development, public services, very broad in nature. They also have to meet a national objective, and so 70% has to go to low to moderate income benefit, right, for households, persons that are at or below LMI. In addition, you can serve through unmet needs, through urgent needs, and urgent needs are really something that's an urgent need, pretty self-explanatory, that is a result of the disasters, of the hurricanes. And then finally, there's the option to use a slum and blight national objective, which is it's very infrequently used, but it's something that can be tapped into if needed. And then what's critical is the tieback concept. So when we talk about unmet needs, every project has to have a tieback in some way. If it's a home, some damage remaining. If it's an infrastructure project, it has to be addressing potentially damage or something that occurred as a result of the hurricanes that you're addressing long term. It can also be a mitigation need, as Jenna mentioned. Mitigation needs really are they're forward looking. What can we do to protect from future events, from future storms?
So this slide shows the host of eligible activities we could do with CDBG-DR. $813 million is a lot of money, but it is not likely enough money to do all of these activities. So this slide shows sort of the menu of things this money could be spent on. CDBG-DR can be used for housing activities, things like construction or rehabilitation of single-family or multifamily housing units. It could be used for infrastructure and public facilities, things like repair of bridges. Economic development or economic revitalization, things like workforce training or small business grants and loans. It could be used for mitigation activities such as stormwater infrastructure improvements. It can be used for public services activities. Some examples of that might be legal aid or housing counseling services. It can be used for planning like hazard mitigation plans or disaster recovery plans. And of course, there are funds set aside to administer the programs. The county's plan will not likely include every eligible activity here. The next slide will show what the county is currently contemplating.
So when we first sat down with the county administrator and the ACAs, what we heard loud and clear was that we need to develop a plan for the people. It's really about getting help to people first, right? So we came up with this concept. It's really a concept of people first programs. Under that concept, we're looking at ideally what would be a single application portal, one portal where you can apply to a number of different types of programs depending on what your needs are, who you are as an applicant, and what relief you may be seeking. So to start looking at homeowners. So we know homeowners are still facing a significant challenge in rebuilding, repairing their homes. So there's opportunities for them to have their homes reconstructed or rehabilitated. There's also potentially a pathway to receive reimbursement for things that you've already paid out of pocket. Maybe you're in a tough financial spot and tap into your 401k. Things like that. It's eligible, something we're considering. In terms of renters often get left out of recoveries in this way. So HUD has offered a new activity, which are called disaster relief payments. And DRFs for short allow us to provide assistance if there's a hardship and they're still, trying to get back on their feet. Local landlords, the concept of a local landlord would be, small mom and pop landlords, maybe an accessory dwelling unit, maybe a couple of houses that you own that you rent out. We can provide assistance to rehabilitate or reconstruct those homes, and we usually look for like a 5-year period of affordability to go along with it. And then finally, small business owners, grants and loans can be offered, repairs to businesses, ultimately working capital, things like that can be offered. And in addition, so that's the people first component. We also don't know that there's an infrastructure need remaining. So what we're considering still talking through this is a 2-phase process for infrastructure for mitigation purposes. The first phase is a planning effort, providing funding to cities and the county to be able to plan to determine what projects are best to be selected for ultimately funding to provide for infrastructure repairs that would, again, look to seek to reduce harm going forward.
And lastly, timeline. So as mentioned, we are currently in the planning process. We expect to be in the planning and public engagement process through late April of this year, when the draft action plan will be published for comment. The comment period will run from late April through late May of this year, at which point the plan will be submitted to HUD for review and acceptance. HUD has 45 days per regulation to accept that plan, and we expect the grant agreement to be extended to Pinellas County in Q3 of 2025. I'll note that from today, actually from before today, all the way through submission of the plan in late May, this public engagement will continue. There will be public meetings scheduled. There will be informal consultation with stakeholders like yourselves, the public. There will be surveys going out. We want public input to really inform this plan so that what is ultimately delivered and accepted by HUD is truly a plan for the people of Pinellas County.
All right. Do we have any questions from the council for Jenna or Ryan? Anyone?
Yeah, I would assume we can get these slides after today. I don't know if they were.
I have a copy of the
Yeah,
presentation.
yeah,
I'll
fantastic.
make sure that it's
Thank you. Yeah, very helpful.
released. All right. I did have one question about the mitigation needs. Does that also fall under the low income priority? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
The other question I would have, what do you need from us as local government leaders? Are we going to have a direct conversation with you about our own municipalities, or what kind of input can we give you to help you do your work?
Sure. You want to take it?
So, the developing the plan, as you saw, is a very tight timeline. Barry Burton, by the way, with Pinellas County. So 23 municipalities, we'd be months, trying to get individual, ideas. But what we can do is get all your ideas. And one of the things we said to the county commission last night is, let's collect those ideas. Somehow they've got to formulate a plan that fits with HUD's requirement. And so let's not get into the sausage making that needs to occur, but let's get the creative ideas. What are the things you think would be helpful for your community? And then we'll have to formulate that. And then we're going to come back out and share, okay, based upon everything and the formulas and mitigation between direct help and mitigation and administration, here's our idea of a plan. And then you'll have another shot at saying, what about X, Y, or Z? We've also tapped Matt Sport to lead this effort for the county. That way you have a direct contact. Matt is familiar, obviously, with the community. He was a longtime city manager of Safety Harbor. Now he's on our staff, and he's an assistant county administrator. And we've tasked him to do this to where we can have ongoing dialogue with you directly, because this is a 6-year process. This is not something, we talked to Lee County, for instance. They're just now putting programs out. Well, Lee County got hit 2 years ago, right? We want to put these programs out now. So that's kind of the way we've organized, but there is no bad thought. And so share your thoughts and ideas, and then we'll come back with kind of what we see as a plan both to you and to the county commission, who ultimately have to approve this, if that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I appreciate everyone coming today and presenting for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have an update from Mike Twitty, who is the Pinellas County Property Appraiser. Welcome, Mike.
Good morning, everybody.
Good to see you.
See you all. Thanks for having me on short notice. Just wanted to convey some updates with everyone. Our office has been working closely with the mayors and the councils and the county and our residents, obviously. It's been a big lift, a lot going on, but I wanted to make sure we convey a few updates that are going on from our office. We do have an important deadline coming up for those that want to take advantage of the partial property tax refund. That deadline is March 3rd. Statutorily, it's March 1st, but because that falls on a Saturday, we're extending to the Monday, which is March 3rd. That is a real deadline. We also have homestead application deadline there too, but that's a timely file for homestead. If they are late for homestead, they can still do a late file application. However, with this, because it's a tax refund that actually is coming out of the pockets of the taxing authorities, this is a hard deadline on March 3rd for the refund. They will have additional recourse, but they would have to file a VAB petition and go through that process, unfortunately. So I want to make sure we're getting that message out. Bay News 9 was in last week. That was pushed out. We've done mailings. We've had information on our website, and we've gotten over 6,000 applications in so far countywide, and they're still pouring in. So if you can share that with your residents, that would be helpful. Also, wanted to let you all know, many of you all sitting here know that we started a new process called a building value reconsideration. That was a relook at the depreciated structure values on our FEMA letter on our website. That's really helped hundreds of people cut through that process in shorter fashion and not necessarily have to get an outside appraisal, doing an actual cash value appraisal, especially when people are close. If they're near the bubble, it's a great way. It's obviously a free service. We're running about 2.5 to 3 weeks out on those because we've had a lot coming in. And it's been quite a backlog. But also the private appraisal process. A lot more appraisers in the private sector have geared up to provide those actual cash value appraisals throughout our jurisdictions. Just want to remind them if they're tuning in to make sure that they're communicating with the reviewers, following the checklist, those types of things, so that they can keep the speed bumps as low as possible when they're working with the city building department, the floodplain administrator, and their clients. Another process that we started, a lot of people were pulling owner-builder permits, and that was creating an issue, especially if their property was held in a trust, because building departments do not have to accept those. They treat them like a corporation, even though they're not a corporation. So we found a process, because we're vetting those owners for homestead already. So we've already reviewed their trust documents for legal and equitable title. So we are providing a trust ownership verification letter. So that can be requested either by the citizen or by the building official, and we can provide that if your jurisdiction will allow that, so that they do not have to do bad things like try and unwind their trust just in order to get a building permit. But a quick reminder, and this has probably been conveyed around, but I've read it a lot on social media and Nextdoor. But if you do pull an owner-builder permit, you do have a 1-year restriction from renting or selling the property. And also want to remind people the Elevate Florida program is out there. That is the best program I've seen out there to date to really help residents. In most cases, it's a 25% out of a homeowner's pocket to elevate their existing home. So I would encourage people to go online and check out the Elevate Florida program. They're taking applications now, and that is supposed to be an expedited program. So, and there is funding in there now, and we expect more to come. Also on the calamity front, so those that do want to, that are repairing or elevating their homes or rebuilding, they can do so up to 110% of their original living area square footage and not reset their Save Our Homes cap. So that cap will stay in place, and just wanted to let them know that that is out there. If they are interested in doing so, make sure you contact our office, because if a home comes down, things like that, we want to make sure that we're keeping their homestead in place throughout that process, and they have a 5-year window to do that. So the way they need to initiate that process is pull a permit. So once you pull a permit, as long as you pull a permit within that 5-year window from the event, from the January 1 following the event. And I think that covers it for me for today.
All right.
Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Mike Twitty?
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank Mr. Twitty for all you've done. Your office has been, from my seat's just been outstanding, and the way you've really, and the suggestions you gave just now, just on how we can help people and programs that will really help people. I really appreciate your service, and particularly your service to our community during a very difficult time, and all of your office is just, from my seat's been outstanding. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else?
I'd like to follow up on that. I totally agree. The communication has also been great, so thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
And I would agree also. It's awesome to know that you actually care about the residents of Pinellas County the way you do. So thank you so much for all you do.
Well, thank you. I'm fortunate to have a fabulous staff. So, you know, if you call our office, you're going to get a human on the phone in short order. And you can always, you guys, know I'm very accessible. So anytime I can do anything.
Great. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Twitty.
you.
Appreciate you being here. All right. I'm going to shift this around just temporarily. I know we've got Rodney Chapman on hold. I'm going to switch over to discussion items right quick because of time constraints, and one of our members has to leave early. So do we have any discussion items? No? Okay. I have a couple. The first is an update on the 2 letters that were drafted and signed by the Barrier Islands mayors. Sending both letters separately today, and they should arrive at the White House tomorrow. Congresswoman Luna was kind enough to actually send digital copies today, so they should be arriving at the White House liaison's office if they're not already there. And that's, well, I actually did have one other. While we're discussing letters, I have another letter from the Big C that is addressed to a Mayor Bill Queen. Oh, well, there he is. Bill, would you mind standing up? So we've got this letter here that's addressed to you, and as you know, we strive to keep the budget low on the Big C. So rather than buying a stamp, I thought that I would just read it to you directly. Is that okay with you? All right, all right. Mayor Bill Queen, on behalf of the Barrier Islands Governmental Council, the Big C, and all its member municipalities, we want to express our deepest gratitude for your 2 decades of dedicated service to North Redington Beach and your invaluable contributions to our collective efforts. Throughout your tenure, you have been a steadfast advocate, not just for your town, but for all communities along the Barrier Islands. Your leadership, integrity, and unwavering commitment to coastal resilience, beach preservation, home rule, and responsible governance have strengthened our municipalities and helped ensure a better future for the communities we serve. Your presence on this council has been marked by thoughtful collaboration, tireless dedication, and a true passion for protecting the unique character and well-being of our Barrier Islands. Whether navigating complex legislative matters, championing coastal initiatives, or offering your wisdom and guidance, you have set a standard of excellence that will inspire future leaders for years to come. As you step into retirement, please know that your impact will be long-lasting and your leadership will be deeply missed. We wish you all the best in this next chapter. May it be filled with relaxation, happiness, and plenty of time to enjoy the very beaches you have worked so hard to protect. With sincere appreciation and best wishes, the Barrier Islands Governmental Council, affectionately known as the Big C. Let's have a nice round of applause for Mayor Quinn. Please come up. We have a small token of our appreciation. And this is the last picture, so we might as well get one with a big C while you're here. Come on around. Looks just like our logo.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to represent North Readington Beach at the Barrier Islands Governmental Council. This is a very, very important group. You guys, your strength is through your unity. Stick together on all the issues, and you'll do well. Thank you very much.
You mind staying for 1 second? I'd like to get a picture with everyone.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
we'll get right back to business.
That's cool. Thank you, Mary. Got it?
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for letting me stray on the agenda there. Now we have a presentation from Rodney Chapman with Ford Pinellas. Hello, Mr. Chapman.
Good morning. Rodney Chapman, Division Manager with Fort Pinellas. And before I go into the details of our work to update Pinellas County's multimodal impact fee ordinance, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on one of the growth management tools that is available to local governments and has been in place here in the county since 1990. So what is the impact fee ordinance? Well, it is a structure that was adopted in 1990 to allow for property owners and developers to pay into a fund to mitigate the impacts of their transportation, on the transportation system of their development projects. It's sort of a fair share approach, and the fees that are levied are based on a formula. That formula includes things like the cost to construct 1 mile of roadway, the particular trips that are generated by certain land uses and other factors. One of the things to keep in mind is the fees that are collected in a certain area have to generally be spent in that same area. So for example, if fees are collected in St. Pete, you couldn't spend them in North Readington Beach, for example. And I'll show you a map of the fee districts and how that plays out in practice. Again, the funds are used by local governments to pay for transportation improvements. The key word there is capacity, meaning allowing projects to occur that will reduce congestion in our communities. So why does the ordinance need to be updated? Well, there's 3 main reasons. The first of which is that there's been changes in state law. The legislature last year passed House Bill 479. And one of the things that was included in that bill is the need for local governments to use localized recent data in those formula calculations that I mentioned earlier. Also, the fee ordinance requires that it be periodically evaluated to ensure that the costs are recent and true. And the last time those costs were looked at was back in 2016. And then lastly, the current ordinance has several use types that probably need to be looked at, things like video rental stores, racket clubs and the like are still in the current ordinance, as well as there's new uses that have popped up over recent years that aren't clearly spelled out in the ordinance, and so we'll need to take a look at what needs to be removed and what needs to be added to the existing ordinance. As we've talked to your staffs from around the county, they've also shared with us that the ordinance can be a little bit difficult to administer, and so there is a lack of uniformity in administering the ordinance around the county, so we want to bring that into alignment. We also want to take another look at those fee and benefit districts. There's 13 across our county. It's by far the most in the state of Florida as we've looked around. And our stakeholders have also told us that we need to pay close attention to ensuring that these changes that we make to the ordinance don't place an inordinate burden on workforce housing, on small business development, and ensure that we come out of this process with something that's more transparent and user-friendly. So let's talk about the spectrum of when the fee is applied and when it's not applied, because I think that's an important distinction to draw. So essentially, when you have a piece of vacant land and you have a property owner or developer that wants to construct a building, whether that be a home, a business, or any other type of development, that's when the fees are levied, because you're taking a piece of vacant land that doesn't generate trips and you're converting it to something that does, and that is the trigger for the payment of the impact fee. On the other end of the spectrum, there are several scenarios when no fee is required, and those essentially try to capture when you have an existing home, business, or type of development that is redeveloped, and we are obviously a redeveloping county, so we see a lot more redevelopment than we do greenfield development. And in these scenarios, no fee is required because those trips are already captured by that pre-existing development. So what have we found so far? We've been working on this project since the summer. We had a little bit of a break because of hurricanes Helene and Milton, and so we hope to be farther along in the process. But we have been able to do a thorough background review and analysis. We've looked at the current ordinance, the current county charter, and how it speaks to the countywide authority. We have looked at relevant state statutes, as well as done a pretty good assessment of the current formula. And we've looked around the state to see how other similarly densely urban counties like Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, and Broward address a multimodal impact fee ordinance. And we have looked at how the fees collected have been used to fund transportation projects, and I'll share some of those details in a subsequent slide. And then lastly, we have forecasted out to 2050 what those transportation needs are and what how the fund, if adjusted, could help meet some of those needs. We are also in the fact-finding and stakeholder outreach phase of the project. We have had several meetings with county administration, the county attorney's office, the building and development review services staffs, not only at the county, but each of your local governments, just to get a sense of what's working well with the ordinance, what's a bit of a challenge, and what they'd like to see changed within the ordinance. And then we're following up beginning tomorrow morning in Gulfport with a series of small focus groups with local government staff. So we split the county into North County, Mid County, and South County, and the beaches, and we'll be having similar conversations with the staff. Our goal is to present our Phase 1 findings to the Board of County Commissioners in the form of a work session because there are some key policy questions that we'd like their input on in terms of sort of the fee split, because right now the fee is split 50% with the county and 50% to the cities. We also want to have some direction on the number of fee districts because one of the things that is a bit of a challenge is the fees have to be spent within a certain time frame. And if the fees aren't spent within that time frame, then they're supposed to be returned back to the developer. So the more benefit districts you have, especially with some of our smaller communities, it makes it harder to spend the money. So earlier, I talked about the number of fee districts, and this map shows you the 13 that exist today in the current ordinance. Generally follows jurisdictional boundaries with a couple distinctions, one being the beaches. So you'll see from the map that the beaches are split into South County and Mid-County beaches, those being districts 12 and 13. So how the revenues looked over a period of time. So what you're looking at here is a 7-year snapshot of the fees that were collected under the existing ordinance. You can see it's about $15 million in total. And probably to no one's surprise, the Mid-County and South County beaches didn't collect a lot of impact fees because you're probably not seeing the type of development that they're seeing in some of our larger communities in Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and Pinellas Park. So how are those dollars been spent? Well, over that same time frame, you will see that the majority of the funds have been put on roadway capacity or adding lanes to our transportation system or intersection improvements. But what's also important to see there is that fourth bar there from the top is that 12 projects have been funded to improve our traffic signal operations. And that is something that's commendable, and it's allowed the county to build out their traffic signal operations in a more efficient way. The other thing I wanted to share with the council was some detail on how the impact fees in its current form are used to fund transportation projects. As I noted earlier, it's not a whole lot of money, and this illustrates that point. What you're looking at here is a page from the county CIP for the replacement of the Beckett Bridge in Tarpon Springs. That's about a $33 million project. But you can see there in the box to the bottom there, impact fees are only covering less than 1% of that total project cost. So why is that important? Well, if you look around just the Tampa Bay region, you can see here in this chart how Pinellas County's fees for these 5 land uses, single-family residential, multifamily, office, warehouse, and discount superstore compares to our partners to the east and to the south. And for example, Pasco County charges about between $8,000 and $13,000 for their multimodal impact fee for a single-family residence. Manatee County charges about $5,100 for an office use. And what we tried to do in this table is summarize at the bottom what that deficit is if you average those costs of our neighboring counties and compare them to what the current ordinance levies for those same uses. So you can see there's a deficit. I mean, we charge less for these uses. So for single-family residential, it's about $6,900 less, multifamily $4,600 less, and so on. So next steps, again, we're here around the county doing a similar series of presentations to get feedback and review some of our initial findings on the ordinance update. We are hoping to complete what we call phase 1 of the work here in the late spring, and then it's probably more like early summer. We want to get some time with the Board of County Commissioners to review some of these findings and get their feedback on some of these policy questions so they can provide us direction for the more technical work where we're looking at trip generation rates, uses, other construction cost formulas, to then fold that data into a revised ordinance that we'll bring back to this and other groups around the county. And that whole process of phase 2, we're thinking is going to be between 6 and 9 months. So just be on the lookout for that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Council, any questions? No? Thank you very much, Mr. Chapman. All right, now we are on to legislative updates. Do we have any legislative updates? No? All right. I guess we're on the city events. Let's start on this end.
We don't have any upcoming events until March.
Is your microphone on? Here.
No, now it's on. We have a Rotary Runs the Beach, so if you want to walk a mile or run a 5K, we'll be holding that at the 17th Avenue Beach Access, I believe on March 14th at 8 a.m. Thank you.
Well, we started Philadelphia Phillies spring training on Sunday. We had our opening day, and I managed not to embarrass myself by actually getting the ball across the plate on a first pitch. So, but we're off to a really important spring training for us, for really all of us here in the county, not just us, but the Blue Jays. Just we really need those tourists back. And this morning I had a chance to welcome the first group to have a meeting at the Opal Soul on Clearwater Beach. They haven't, grand opened yet, but they got a soft opening and first group there today. And that's such an important asset for our community. It's the largest meeting space we'll have in anywhere along the coast here in Pinellas County, but the largest meeting space we'll have now in Clearwater Beach. And so I told them, it's American Bar Association was there, their labor and employment section, just how important it is. I thank them for coming and supporting us. I also tell them that, our hospitality workers here throughout all the varied islands, they went through a very tough time through 2 or 3 months. And I'd like to see us, continue, Barry, if we could find some of this money to help out some of these folks that were relying on wages and tips and didn't get them for about 3 or 4 months, and they're still struggling. So I encouraged them to tip, but tip generously. And if we can all do that to the folks that are visiting, that I think that's really important to our families who support our important tourism industry here now. Then we've got Sugar Sand coming up, festival coming up here soon, and just looking to have a robust spring break that will help all of us. If you can't stay in Treasure Island or St. Pete Beach or Redington or anywhere along our Berry Islands this year, we hope that you at least come back to Pinellas County so that next year, when we're able to have them back in your communities, they'll be used to coming to Pinellas County and not have fallen in love with some other destination for 1 year and that they'll stay here. So we have capacity, and we've got most of our resorts back open, and so we want to help all of us succeed together. And so hopefully we'll have a successful spring break, and we'll all do that together.
Next.
Things are quiet in North Reddington. We don't have any events going on. And just take this time, I want to thank Bill again for all of his years of service. And then we also are going to have Gary Curtis, who's been with us for over 20 years, and also Richard Bennett, who's been with us for about 20 years. All three will be retiring. So I'll just take this time to thank them on behalf of the city. Thank you.
Very nice. All quiet in Bel Air Beach.
Well, for Reddington Shores, we don't have any events, but I do want to acknowledge Helen Roldan being with us here this morning. She is on her way to Tallahassee and stopped in to join our Big C. Helen, stand up for just a moment. I just want everybody to recognize you because you've done a lot of work for our beaches free. And she is the Director of Communications and Public Affairs with Ballyhoo Media. And that is the boat with the big screen that goes over our waters. And in preparation for spring break, Helen and I connected to start the free messaging again, the PSAs about filling our holes, how we love our pets, please leave them at home, and e-bike safety. So I just wanted to acknowledge Helen for making a beeline here on her way up to Tallahassee. And then also to my friend Bill Queen, I wish I had more time to work with you and mentor under you. And in my short time together with you, I've learned a lot, and I thank you for your service.
In Madeira, we have our Wednesday morning market is open. So on your way out, you can stop there and do a little shopping. We also have our monthly cleanup on March 1st, and the Seafood Festival is March 28th, the weekend, and the Grunt Hunt is the 20th through the 22nd. So we've got a lot of fun stuff going on, and the weather's fantastic.
Well, I think that it was said best by Clearwater that, our events are basically spring break for the next 6 weeks. And I think that the smaller events, but just as important, are that our chambers are helping us get back on our feet. All of our restaurants and retail shops, they're doing re-grand openings for these folks, ribbon cuttings, and those events are very important for our community because really the small businesses, the hotel motels, the everything that we've got, our bars and restaurants and that, it is the backbone of our economy. And so hopefully we're going to have a great 6 weeks. Thank you.
All right, I guess that's it. I'd like to thank everyone for being here this morning, and I'd also like to thank Madeira Beach for their hospitality. Mayor Queen, if you'd stay back for just 1 second, and this meeting is adjourned.